Hey, it's Mark, your financial firefighter, realtor, and out-of-state investor. Let me remind you, I do work for the Honolulu Fire Department. I do work for RE/MAX Honolulu. All the ideas, topics discussed on this channel are of my own. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just here to hopefully help you get started in your out-of-state real estate investing journey and reach your financial freedom without making the same mistakes that I made. Today, I want to talk about an expense that a lot of people seem to overlook. We always hear about maintenance and repairs and those type of things, toilets, termites, taxes. We always hear these type of expenses come up. But something that a lot of people don't talk about is tenant turnover. And that can probably be one of your biggest expenses is when you have a tenant turnover. Tenant turnover will happen. So no matter what you do, you can always expect for tenant turnovers to happen in your rental properties. But what you want to do is try to make sure that you can limit these as much as possible. And that starts with going all the way back to where you're looking at your buy box and trying to figure out what type of properties you're looking for. So for a lot of people, when they're looking at what type of properties they're going to purchase, they're always going to try to go with possibly a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, but the bedroom and size count do matter, right? You don't want necessarily a too small place, maybe under 1,000 square footage, and you also don't want a very big place, maybe over 1,600 square footage, because now when you do have tenant turnover, you have more repairs, possibly more cleaning costs. So you want to find that sweet spot for your market and your type of property that you're looking for. So I would say probably between like maybe 1,100 and 1,600 is a good place to consider, because you do want some space, and that's why 3-bedroom, garage. It also allows people or your tenants to have storage, right? You want to have your tenants having a lot of space, so the more things they accumulate and have to store, it kind of sometimes hinders them from, or deters them from wanting to move because they have so much things to take with them. So that's also an important thing to consider, is the amount of space that your tenants might have. So this goes all the way back to your buy box and what type of property that you're looking for. So for me, even placing your tenant is super critical in tenant turnover. So for me, since I invest out of state, I highly rely on a property manager. Now, for those of you that are gonna invest out of state and are considering self-managing, I haven't done it, so I really can't speak on it. But from what I've learned so far, I think it would be very challenging in the beginning. I would highly recommend going with a property management company until you get some knowledge, get your feet wet, kind of go through some problems and see how things operate. And then maybe you can consider self-managing. But in the beginning, if you're going to invest out of state, I highly recommend really considering using property management. So I use property management, and I have a wonderful property management in place. So when we place tenants, we have the company has certain requirements that they use, right? So they look, a certain credit score has to be a certain number. The applicant's income has to be a certain amount above rent. And they look at the background check. They look at the type of employment. So these are all things that can ensure or help you hopefully have your tenant stay longer, right? So you want a person that has good job stability, good income, and they're likely gonna probably stay in your property a lot longer. And that's super helpful, especially in the beginning. When you first get your rental portfolio growing, you hopefully can have tenants stay in place longer, because without them moving out, you're saving a lot on expenses, because that's when it gets to be very costly when these tenants move out. If they're gonna move out every year, that's a vacancy. And like, for example, my property management company, they take the first month's rent. That's how a lot of property management companies operate. In the beginning, you're probably gonna have to go with that. I don't like nickel and diming the property management company, especially if I have a smaller portfolio. I want to build a relationship with them. Now, as the portfolio grows, then it becomes a little bit easier for you to negotiate. Maybe you can work out a deal where saying, hey, you know what? How about we go on a fixed rate for the percent, maybe a little bit higher percentage, but you're not going to do any first month rent anymore, taking the first month rent. So that way it also incentivizes your property manager not to have tenant turnover, because they're not going to be collecting that first month rent anymore. So that's something you have to kind of feel your way around. But in the beginning, I highly recommend not trying to nickel and dime your property management company, especially if you have a small portfolio. Because if you really look at it, let's say you're commanding $1,000 of rent for your property and your property manager is only getting 10%, he's only getting $100, and he also has to pay his brokerage. So let's say he's getting $80, for that one property. And now you're trying to nickel and dime him for a couple percentage points or discount rate. You want to build a relationship, right? You want to become a big deal for your property manager. So that's why in the beginning, I highly recommend, not trying to nickel and dime them, right? Because if he's not making money, he's going to put less focus on your property, right? So you want to make sure he's incentivized to do a good job for you. So I really recommend, not trying to nickel and dime your property manager. In the beginning, as you grow, then it does give you a little bit of leverage, to kind of help you negotiate on the terms. Why do I feel tenant turnover is such a hidden expense? It's just, you don't really think about it, right? In the beginning, you think, once you place a tenant, you're going to have your property occupied for years, right? But things happen, tenants move on, tenants sometimes move, they get divorced or they split up, and they part separate ways, and now they're looking for other places. So you got to keep that in mind. Tenant turnover will happen, but if you can minimize it, it's going to greatly help your returns. Because when you have a tenant turnover, just think about it, right? You had someone living there for, let's say, a year. They decide to move out. Now you have to get that property advertised again. You got to get that property cleaned and possibly have some repairs or things that need to be upgraded, because maybe it has some wear and tear while the other tenant was there, or you have to get it rent ready again, right? And that can be a big expense. So that's why, like I'm saying, tenant turnover is that hidden expense that can really drain on your returns, right? So if you can minimize that, then that's going to be super helpful in what type of returns that you're getting on your property. So let's try and figure out ways to keep our tenant there. And one big thing, and I'll discuss this in another video, but allowing pets. Now that's something you got to figure out if that's something that you want to allow. But I find that allowing pets is super helpful in keeping tenants in place, because we all know, right? People love their pets, and their pet is part of the family. And these people don't want their pets having to go through change and new living conditions. So a lot of times, if you allow pets, then that's one way to really kind of help keeping your tenants in place a lot longer. So keep that in mind, right? So I'll discuss that in another video about if you should allow pets. But just quick, I allow pets in my rentals. But yes, so you got to think of ways to keep your tenants in place, and that also comes down to staying on top of maintenance requests. I understand that should, if you have a property management company, they're going to be the ones following through with that. But you also have to have a good relationship with your property management company on how these situations are handled. So a lot of times you'll have terms in place where, let's say, if there's any type of repair or maintenance, if the cost is going to be, let's say, below $300, your property manager doesn't have to contact you. I mean, he'll notify you at some point, but if it's under a certain amount, he's able to kind of move forward on the maintenance or repairs and take care of it so that the tenants don't have to wait. Now, if it's something bigger, the cost is going to be higher, then maybe your property manager is going to have to contact you first. You're going to have to go over scenarios and maybe get different quotes. But that's something that's going to be, you're going to have to discuss with your property manager ahead of time so that this thing can run smoothly. But that also helps with tenant turnover, because just imagine if you're living somewhere and let's say you have some type of little leak or some type of appliance that needs to be fixed or maintenance, and they're taking forever to get this taken care of, right? That would be an inconvenience to you, right? So you got to also keep in mind that you want to handle these things in a timely manner, because people are living here, and they have to go on with their life, and they're waiting on you to make a decision to get this thing fixed or taken care of. So keep that in mind. Maintenance and following up on maintenance requests and repairs is super, super critical. So that's also where your property manager is super important in all of this. He is your point of contact to help this process go smoothly. So just to give you a little history, so far out of my 14 rentals, I've had 3 tenant turnovers. So one though was when I purchased it, there was a tenant in place, so we already kind of expected at some point this tenant will be moving on. As we kind of did some renovations and as we were going to increase the rent, the tenant was aware of it. He was staying in place while we were doing some renovations while he was still there, so he was getting a discounted rate, but it was helping me with at least getting some cash flow on the property, so and then not being completely vacant. So that was kind of expected. Another one was the couple is separating or splitting up, so they're going to be parting ways, so they're not going to want to stay in that place anymore. So, and that happens, right? You can't, no matter how much you prepare for it, you're not going to always have tenants renewing their lease. So it can happen. And the other one, it just was, she decided that there wasn't a place for her and she was going to move on. But that's all part of it, right? It does happen. But 3 out of 14 properties, I think that's a pretty good ratio, and I'm happy with that. But definitely, that helps that my portfolio is a certain size, so that when I do have vacancies, the other properties can cover, for these vacancies that I do have. So keep that in mind, But that all, like I said, it all goes back to the beginning, right? The type of properties you're looking at, and also placing the tenant. So it's super, super critical to place your tenants or have certain requirements that you're looking for with these applicants. Like I said, credit score, job history, income. It's super, super important to helping determine or with your tenant possibly staying or renewing their lease, right? So, like I said, just do your best, prepare for it. It will happen. Tenant turnover will happen, but we want to try and minimize it so that we don't have too much vacancies and too much expenses from it. So that's why do your best building a good buy box, tenant placement, and staying up to speed with maintenance, repairs, and requests. One thing that has been crossing my mind, and I haven't done it yet, but I do see other landlords discussing it on Twitter and other people talk about it on their social media pages, is like buying gifts for your tenants during the holidays or Valentine's Day. Sending flowers to moms, or if you have any tenants that are mothers, or or birthdays. If their birthdays, you send them gift cards or something. Especially during Christmas time, you may be sending them Amazon gift cards or grocery gift cards. But I haven't done it yet. That's something that I've put on Twitter and questioned on social media, and there's kind of a 50-50 split. There's some landlords that feel, yeah, it's a super good way to build a relationship with your tenants. It shows that you think you care about them and you want them to stay, and you kind of value their input and value them staying in your property longer. And there's other landlords that are like, no, I don't want any contact with my tenants. I don't want any type of relationship with them. I don't want them to know who I am. I just, I'm not trying to make friends here. And they just completely, think that's not a good idea. So I'm kind of on the fence. I definitely see benefits to buying some small gift cards, maybe for the family or for your tenant during the holidays. But I haven't done it yet. So if anybody out there has any experience on that and wants to comment, let me know their thoughts on it. I think that would be something good to discuss. Is how do you feel about giving your tenants gifts during the holidays and whatnot? But so that's another way to possibly keep your tenants in place longer. So like I said, there's a lot of ways to handle it, but just keep in mind that is something you also have to consider, right? And that's just something that you kind of gets lost in the shuffle of repairs and other type of expenses and maintenance, and like I said, taxes and property management fees and all these things, right? You know, there's so much things to think about, and that's why people that say being a landlord is passive income, you know, it's not. It is definitely not. It's a lot of work, especially in the beginning. Like I said, especially when your portfolio is smaller, there's a lot more stress and a lot more things that, you know, you're more concerned with. But as your portfolio grows, it does make things a little bit easier to weather. So just like, subscribe, you know, hit that notification button and comment. You know, one thing I do need your folks' help with is what I'm trying to do is what I realize about this social media thing, this YouTube channel thing, is at some point it becomes challenging to be the star of your own show. So for this format of me talking about my experience, I love it. I love bringing it to you. But at the same time, after a while, it does become difficult for me to come up with topics. You know, so I'm starting to look at trying to also incorporate interviews on my channel. So if there's anybody that you want me to try to reach out to and see if I can get an interview with them or get them on my channel, I got one lined up with Millennial Mike coming up soon, so that should be fun. You know, the whole police-fire rivalry type thing, but he's been super supportive, so I reached out to him and said, hey man, let's collaborate on something so I can get, you know, kind of get the kinks out and work on it and figure out how to do this interview type thing. And I got some other interviews set up with some people on Twitter, some other real estate investors that do out-of-state investing. So I'm excited about this. I can't wait to get this part of it into my channel incorporated. But if there's anybody that you folks want me to maybe reach out to and see if I can get them on, or some topics that you want me to discuss, just let me know. You know, message me, comment, whatnot. But you know where to find me: Instagram, Facebook, you know, TikTok, Twitter, Financial Firefighter. But just trust the process and just keep looking for those great deals out there.